Yo, what's good, everybody? Sino the Dreaded Beast here, and we're back with another chapter review. And we're doubling up today with chapters 58 and 59 for Kagurabachi. I'm not gonna hold y'all too long. I know I'm behind, and I got a couple more videos I gotta record coming for y'all later this week. Diving straight in, we going into chapter 58. And 58 begins 7 minutes before the end of chapter 57, where we see Chihiro about to square off against Hiruhiko, as he has now gained the ability to use Kameyura. So we see Mr. Samera's group getting ready to depart from the fortress. The battle there has officially ended, and they are basically just getting themselves together and talking out a plan to see what to do next. And then the next thing we see is everybody is on the ground, knocked out, and we see Hakari is the first to wake up among the group. And what he sees is the feathers of crow all around them, as well as Mr. Samura standing over Yoji. Yoji then asks Mr. Samura if he has gone mad and what is he doing. But Mr. Samura reassures him that he is completely sane and knows exactly what he is doing. And that since they arrived at the fortress, they have not been able to have a proper talk master the student. Mr. Samura then asks Yoji what happens after everything is done. After they retrieve the blades from Hishaku, what happens then? And the real answer is nothing. Things are just gonna go back to how they were before they were stolen. And Samura says that now that he is wielding an enchanted blade again, it is his duty to essentially root out all evil. And Yoji believes he's talking about Hishaku. But Samura clarifies that while Hishaku is evil and does need to be dealt with, there is a greater force of evil at play, and that is the sword bearers themselves. Samura then reminds Yoji of the crimes they committed and how they were covered up, and because of that, they're held as heroes now by the general public and by those who know nothing about what happened during the war. Mr. Samura then reassures Yoji that all the sword bearers will die by his hand, and after that, the Hishaku members are next. But because of the evil that the sword bearers have and the potential threat that they face, Mr. Samura is willing to temporarily align himself with them in order to accomplish his goal of killing all of them. And he says this is more convenient for him because he will be able to keep track of the swords even after the sword bearers are done being dealt with. And especially now that he has Tobimune, he can do this more efficiently than Hishaku was able to, and it will not cost so many lives like it did with the fight that they just finished. But Yoji tells Samura that while he understands his sentiment, he cannot just throw his life away, as there's been too many lives sacrificed for him to get to this point. And as he says this, they both begin to square off for a duel to the death. Hikaru, seeing this, tries to use his sorcery, presumably to bring Kameyura in order to make it a fair fight between sword bearers. But he is too slow, and in one strike, Mr. Samura is able to cut down Yoji. And with Yoji's final breath, he asks his master, is he going to bear this burden alone? And Samura answers yes, that way nobody else has to suffer. And then we see that Hikaru was able to summon Chihiro to the fortress, and as he appears, he sees the aftermath of Mr. Samura cutting down Yoji and is in complete shock. Now, Chapter 59 picks up right after this, with Mr. Samura saying that Chihiro reeks of blood. But Chihiro is in so much shock that he doesn't really understand what is going on and is just in complete denial. Seeing that Chihiro is kind of shaken up, Samura hesitates, but then asks Chihiro to lay down his sword and to let him handle the rest in retrieving the enchanted blades. Chihiro, although kind of disoriented by what he sees, refuses and says that if Mr. Samura is their enemy, then he will just have to kill him as well. But just like with Yoji, all it takes is one hit from Mr. Samura and Chihiro is down. And Mr. Samura then goes to take Enten, But we see that Chihiro and Enten has disappeared, and it's because Mr. Shiba has arrived and has rescued them before Mr. Samura could get to them. Samura tells Shiba that he is late and that Hishaku knows about their sins from the war, and that with this knowledge, Hishaku plans to reveal the truth to the general public and destroy their reputations as heroes. Samura then asks Mr. Shiba if Chihiro knows the truth about what happens, but Shiba says no, because it was no need to tell him because he was innocent and didn't need to know this information. And Samura agrees, saying it's better that he doesn't know. Samura then takes off, and with a quick cut, we get a title graphic saying that Yoji and Chihiro have been pronounced dead. We then cut 2 hours later, and we're at the Hishaku hideout, and we see that Hidehiko is getting his arms reattached and that Kameyura has been put into storage. And we see that along with Hidehiko, there is the leader of Hishaku, Yura, and another one who we seen earlier a couple chapters ago. I can't remember his name, and I don't even know if they gave him his name. I can't remember. But Hidehiko asks Yura why he isn't able to use Kameyura yet, or use it anymore. And Yura tells him that it's a precaution because Mr. Samura will most likely be able to find them anywhere, and that by hiding it, it basically prevents him from being able to take it from them, and is basically an insurance policy to keep the enchanted blade in their possession. And Hidehiko and the other member asks if Samura knows about this hideout location, but Yura tells them no, he has never told them about it. But they are dealing with the man who is able to control the entire flow of the war on the battlefield. And as he says this, we see the outline of an owl's face and eyes appear in the sky. And then within the hideout of Hishaku, we see a familiar sign, falling feathers, a sign that Tobimune's ability Crow is being used. Samura then appears in the hideout and begins to question Yura about the legitimacy of his plan in attacking the fortress, and if it was absolutely necessary for that many lives to have been lost, and that it really would have been a better plan to just give him Tobimune so he could just go after the sword bearers himself. And Yura assures him that it was absolutely necessary and that he wanted to save him as a trump card in case things really got bad. We then find out the conditions set by Mr. Samura to ensure his cooperation with Hishaku until the sword bearers have been dealt with. And there are basically 3 conditions that he set forth. Condition number 1, they must reveal all the identities of Hishaku members. So we know that Mr. Samura knows all the identities of all 10 members of Hishaku. Second condition, reveal the identity of whoever the location of Rokuhiro's hideout where the enchanted swords were kept. And condition number 3, the location for where they're storing the enchanted blades. And then we cut back to the conversation and we see that Yura kind of snaps back at Mr. Samura, saying that he killed Chihiro, and asks him, was that necessary? And Mr. Samura states that he did it because he felt like he had no other choice, and that if he didn't, Chihiro would have became a nuisance otherwise. Yura then compliments him on his conviction for wanting to punish the sword bearers. But Hidehiko hears this and interrupts, extremely angry at what he just heard, because he saw Chihiro as a friend that he could fight to the death with. And he basically says that he will avenge Chihiro and that he will kill Mr. Samura himself. Samura tells him to calm down, that their time will come, but it is not now. After he is done dealing with the sword bearers, he will have a genuine fight with him to the death, because he does not plan to let them keep Kameyura or any of the other enchanted blades for themselves. Samura then tells Yura that he knows that he has hidden and sealed away Kameyura as well, and that they should not get any ideas of using it or any of the other enchanted blades once their contracts are up, because with the use of Owl, he will basically know whenever a enchanted sword is being used. And then Samura prepares to leave, but leaves them with one last remark, telling them that all they need to do now is sit tight and provide him with information on the locations of the remaining sword bearers, and he will clean it up his own way, only taking out the sword bearers and not having to waste the lives of anybody else trying to protect them. And now with Mr. Samura gone, Hidehiko and the second member of Hishaku question whether they will be able to handle Mr. Samura when the time comes, and if they should have just killed him now. But Yoda tells them that it couldn't be helped to incorporate Mr. Samura in their plans, but now that the time has come for him to take over, they must be very careful, and it's time for them to play for keeps. The chapter ends with Mr. Samura thinking to himself while on the rooftops that he only has to last one more week and everything will be done. And we see Chihiro in another panel surrounded by doctors, and as it zooms in on his face, his eyes open. All right, so that is chapter 58 and 59 for Kagurabachi. Let's get into a few points that are very important from these two chapters. The number one important point is I was wrong. In chapter 57, I assumed that Mr. Samura was the person who leaked the location of the compound where the enchanted blades were hidden. Turns out he was not, and he didn't join Hishaku until afterwards, and basically doing that in order to root out all evil, as Chihiro's father always wanted, especially when it came to the use of the enchanted blades. So I'm actually happy to see that Mr. Samura did not betray Chihiro's father. He basically only joined after in order to protect the legacy that was left after his death, being Chihiro and the enchanted blades. The second point is that with these past three chapters, starting 57 through 59, we've got to see two abilities of Tobimune, the enchanted sword that Mr. Samura uses, and that's Crow and Owl. And so Crow seems to be an ability that lets you move at very high speeds, and seems to be a utility type ability that aids in mobility. And then Owl, not really sure what it does, but it may be some type of sensory ability, because he says in chapter 59 that if they were to use a enchanted sword, he would be able to tell, and that gives me the impression that he has some type of sensory ability. And with Owl being, when it's activated, has that big owl face in the sky, I'm thinking that that ability has something to do with some type of sensory over a large area, which might be what he used during the wartime in order to move around the battlefield, as well as in combination with Crow to defeat large numbers of enemies while also weaving through and avoiding his own comrades. That's basically it for this video. If you enjoyed this video and want more anime content like it, leave a like and subscribe. Comment anything you want to know about Kagurabachi below, or for any other anime I also cover. I will have a couple more videos for those coming out soon, hopefully. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.